Garrett, let me start with you. Day after day, we've seen you chasing down various administration officials, walking in to speak with closed-door lawmakers here. That is not going to happen today because these four men aren't going to show, we think, right?
Yeah, that's the understanding. Two of them received subpoenas overnight, at least. I suspect we'll find out by the end of the day that all four received subpoenas, and none are coming. Two lawyers for the National Security Council, one OMB official, one top aide to Mick Mulvaney, all thumbing their nose at Congress here today. That may become a theme this week as you look ahead to the other depositions we're expecting to get later this week, including Energy Secretary Rick Perry, who's already said he won't show, John Bolton, who said he won't show unless he has to, and a couple of other officials who Democrats have been trying to get in under the wire, if you will. This should be the last week of closed-door depositions. That's what Democrats have been saying over the weekend. We expect to start seeing transcripts released from the previous depositions as early as today. And ironically, for Republicans who have wanted to see this process get opened up, that's not sitting very well because they still want to hear from the whistleblower himself. Here was Jim Jordan this morning talking to reporters about why he needs to see that happen.
This is the guy who started it all. We think he should sit in front of us under oath, answer our questions, and do that in person.
President Trump's been hammering the whistleblower on Twitter over the weekend. I asked Mark Meadows if there was any good faith reason why the whistleblower needs to show up in person as opposed to answer written questions. You know, whether this is just an effort to find the whistleblower's identity and try to discredit them. Meadows' argument was written questions, which the whistleblower's attorney has suggested they'd be amenable to, would probably just get answered by the whistleblower's lawyer. And Republicans want to hear the whistleblower's words from his or her own mouth. But as of right now, it doesn't look like they're going to get that opportunity, at least in these closed-door depositions this week. Hallie?
And one of them could have been really interesting, Garrett. Garrett, thank you. I want to go to Hans Nichols now. One of them was the National Security Council lawyer, John Eisenberg, who, according to our reporting, according to a source familiar with testimony, instructed a key witness to stay quiet about concerns about that phone call between President Trump and the Ukrainian leader. Talk us through the White House response this morning, Hans.
So those were serious concerns that Alex Vindman had about what he thought was almost a restriction on him having a discussion about policy, which is what someone in his official capacity would do. You know, Garrett just hinted at the fact that there might not be any testimony for the rest of the week, any private depositions. The current White House thinking on this is that that's how it's going to hold. And I think that's important for a couple of reasons. That basically means
wait a second, Hans, and that includes John Bolton, they think?
Correct. The current thinking on this, right? And this could change, but I was just speaking to an official here. The current thinking is that Bolton will likely not testify. Now, there's some hedges on that. There's some caveats on that. But what that does is it basically freezes the facts before we go into, in I guess, 2 weeks' time, to the public phase of this. What we know, what we have are the depositions that have been taken up to this point. That's Fiona Hill. That's Gordon Sondland. That is Alex Vindman. That is Tim Morrison. All that then, as the Democrats are saying, some of those will be released publicly, some of those transcripts, and then you'll move to the public phase of this. So I think we need to look at what the president is both saying, what he has said, and what he's done. And as you're pointing out, he's very clear on this, that he wants to hear directly from the whistleblower. At the same time, there are clear whistleblower protections. And Hallie, you remember just, was it 3-4 weeks ago when you asked the president if they wanted to find out who the whistleblower's identity is? And the president almost seemed to hint that they wanted it out at that stage. Now, he's come back a little bit on that. He just says he wants to hear from him. But on the crucial question, does the president know who the whistleblower is, and how convinced is he that this person is a never-Trumper? He's been hinting now for some time. Now, that may become clear when we have a chance, and I know you're going to be down here to ask the president some questions later on today. Hallie?
Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.